First, number one is open forum, a session for members of the public to ask questions, raise concerns or provide feedback. Have we got any?
We don't have any members of the public, unless anyone else wants to raise anything.
Can I raise a couple of points, if you don't mind? One thing is, I noticed the other day that it's been going on a long time now, the situation at Wakefield Kirkgate Station and the non-existence of the toilets, which was supposed to have been started 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I went down on Sunday and I noticed there was a hole again on platform 2 and 3. So I presume they're now going to start putting them up again. And also regarding the railways, the situation regarding, and there's nobody here from LNER, where LNER are wanting to cut back on the opening times of the booking offices in this area, both at Wakefield and at Leeds, which is not beneficial to the members of the general public when it comes to getting certain trains and getting stuff sorted out. And I think it's a wrong move when that's the way things are going at the moment. Thank you.
Any further questions?
We did. Oh, sorry.
From Pontefract's point of view, just after the reinstatement of the later trains, it's difficult. There's a period where it's difficult to get back from Leeds, and people are scared of if they miss the last train. You know, there's no real option late at night other than the last train. I haven't written it down which ones, but there's 2 that's been hopefully temporarily suspended.
Is that one for you, Pete?
Yeah, sure. I can take both of those if you like. Well, part of the first one anyway. Yes, Wakefield Kirkgate it's a project by Grand Central. We're helping them with it, and they are doing it. They've started that work again. It is a problematical piece of work, to be honest, because they've got to get concrete over to the island platform, and it's proved almost impossible to do.
Go back into emails.
Because they need to work. Well, they need to close the line to do it is a problem. So it's causing them all sorts of hassle and causing us all sorts of hassle because there's no shelter there. But it is coming now, and the work has started again. Pontefract late trains. Well, they won't be back in the. They won't be back in the December timetable. That's for sure. May next year. I'm not sure. We are under instructions that, you know, our timetable, our base plan is basically the December plan this year, and any build on that will need to be done in consultation with the Department for Transport, who ostensibly are funding this type of thing at the moment.
Chair, I've got one that has been submitted by somebody who couldn't attend today, which is for Arriva. Should I read it out?
Yes, please. But just to let you know, at the moment, I've lost. It's coming back.
You all right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it out. So this is from John Cherms, rather, and it says, I would like to pass on a question to the Arriva representative about the 189 service. Since this service went from every 10 minutes, Wakefield to Leeds, to every 15 minutes, Wakefield to Castleford, the service has got worse, with sometimes 2 or even at 3 buses turning up within minutes, then between 30 and 45 minutes till the next bus. Can the reliability of this service be looked into, as it seems Normanton seems to be going backwards as far as its bus service is concerned? Thank you.
I can take that one, Andrew.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Yes, so certainly it is something that we've observed as well, that the punctuality on the 189 service isn't up to our usual standards. It is probably coincidental that the that this was timed around the service change, but we have experienced a number of roadworks, particularly in the Normanton area, which has severely affected that service, and there have been delays of up to 45 minutes at times on that service. We are monitoring it. It is getting better as the roadworks are subsiding, but unfortunately, we are in the position that we're at with the roadworks. We obviously work closely with Wakefield Council on any mitigation. One of the things that has come up as a particular issue this time around is that we seem to be getting a lot of roadworks that are all affecting the same services. So working with the council, we're looking at a different approach to roadworks where there are less roadworks per route, which will have a considerable improvement, a considerable effect on the services. So yeah, in response to that, we are aware of the delays. We apologise. It is somewhat out of our control, but we are doing all we can to work with the council to mitigate it.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, final questions? We'll move on to item 2, apologies for absence.
I received an apology from John Cherms. I haven't received any other apologies.
Thank you for that. Item 3, declarations of disposal of pecuniary interest. Transport Committee members only. Are there any?
I haven't received any. I don't think there's just yourself from the Transport Committee. Is there on here at the minute?
I think yes. I don't. Councillor Keith not here, or Councillor Marley. I understand.
No.
So it's just myself. Hang on.
Oh, Councillor Mortley's here.
Are there any declarations?
Councillor Morley, you're on mute. I haven't received any anyway.
Oh, that's fine. Move on to item 4, accept information, possible exclusion of the press and public. Is that appropriate?
No, we've not received anything. There's nothing, is there, Andrew?
No, nothing that would need exclusion.
Thank you for that. Item 5, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March 2021. Please note that these minutes are presented for information and cannot be approved during this informal meeting, pages 1 to 4.
Yeah, because it's an informal meeting, we're unable to approve them. But they're there for information at the moment.
So information only, of which everybody's got a copy.
Yes, all got a copy, and also from the district consultation subcommittee as well.
Thank you for that.
The joint one, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Item 6, notes of the informal joint DCSC meeting held on the 26th of August 21. Again, for information only, pages 5 to 14.
Yeah, thank you.
Item number 7 is introductions. I've never done this meeting before. Do I introduce myself and ask for other people to introduce themselves?
Yes, please.
Right. So I'm Councillor Alan Garbutt, representative from Wakefield Council. Are there any other people that wish to introduce themselves?
Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Andrew Bradley. I'm Head of Customer Services for West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So my specific brief is that I look after information, ticketing and customer service for public transport across West Yorkshire, principally buses, but with some interest in rail as well. But I'm representing all of the transport and property services team at the Combined Authority from an officer perspective. So if you've got anything that you want to impart or share on my area of concern or anybody else's, whether it's bus services or what have you, then feel free to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Peter Daniels, and I'm from the Wakefield as a member of the public on the system. I am also chairman of Priggleston Parish Council and spent all my working life working for the railway industry. Thank you.
Which parish council was that, sir?
Priggleston.
Priggleston.
Yeah, I'm the chairman.
Thank you. Are there any further?
I'm Dave Hogg, chairman of the rail group for Pontefract Civic Society, speaker finder for Pontefract Probus Club, and I worked in the rail industry most of my life as a fitter.
Thank you for that. Any further introductions?
I'm Pete Myers. I'm the stakeholder manager for Northern, the train operator.
Thank you. Any further ones?
I'm Dwayne Wells, Head of Commercial for Arriva Yorkshire.
Thank you. Any further ones?
I'm Jeanette Woodcock and I'm from the West Yorkshire Combined Authority from Governance Services.
Thank you, Janet. Finally, is there any further ones? Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is the Chair's update and transfer review. I understand that we'll be getting an operator's update at some point. Could I welcome everyone to the meeting? Item 9 is the information report, which I believe you all got a copy, pages 15 to 18. Are there any questions on that information report? Do you want to give any updates?
I think one of the things I would like to ask, Chair, is just to on the Appendix 1, which you'll find on page 17 of the paperwork, is it's just around the urban traffic management control, which is item 3 in the list of current project activity for Wakefield. And I'm keen to understand, and I will take this away to find out, but I'm keen to understand whether that's all on track. So whether the integration of the 5 traffic management systems across West Yorkshire, which is due to complete March 22, whether that's on track or not, as it were. So I will take that away to find out, because I think that's a very important piece of work that will help certainly in terms of bus punctuality and the like.
Have we anybody with us at the moment that could probably throw some light onto that question?
I'm not sure there's anybody on the call who can, but I will commit to come back with an answer to my own question, which is fine because I think it's a benefit to everybody.
Thank you for that. I think we're now on to item 10 and operators updates. Have we got people from Arriva and First here?
I think we've only got a representative from Arriva, but they are the majority, the major operator in Wakefield area. So that's probably okay. Dwayne, do you want to provide an update?
Yes, certainly can. Firstly, I wanted to start off with an apology to our customers. We know that our recent service delivery has been an issue within the Wakefield district. We are struggling with a driver shortage, as many of you may know, with some of our drivers having left us to join the HGV sector, and that is forcing us to cancel some trips. Usually we have spare drivers available, as you'd expect, to cover any on-the-day absence, but we are stepping up those drivers to cover vacant duties, and that means that we're less agile to react to issues of sickness that may emerge on the day. So I want to apologise and also take the opportunity to thank customers for bearing with us. And also for the committee, I want to run through the actions we're taking to resolve the issue. We have a number of actions in this regard, an intensive recruitment campaign, as you would expect, primarily focused on social media, and you may see adverts on the back of our buses as well around the Wakefield district. We're working with the DVLA to fast track provisional licence applications to increase the number of our trainees in our school. And we're also temporarily increasing our starter rate for existing PCV licence holders to a slightly higher rate of pay. We do have some service changes coming into effect from the 25th of October, which are all designed to reduce driver resource requirements. And we're doing this in a way that doesn't impact connectivity across Wakefield in order to keep communities connected. And in terms of our service delivery, we're of course obviously prioritising hourly services above those that run more frequently because they clearly a cancellation has a greater effect. Moving to sort of the recovery from the pandemic, we're back to around about 76% of our usual pre-pandemic patronage levels now. So still growing, which is obviously quite welcome. This Sunday, just gone, we had a particularly encouraging day, 85% of our pre-pandemic patronage. So we're certainly heading in the right direction. But of course, the world has changed. And so finally, in terms of ticketing, we're trying to react to that as well. We have noticed certainly our ticket that sold quite well pre-pandemic, the weekly ticket has reduced in volume. Less people buying that, and that's obviously because we're now working more flexibly. People are traveling less often and not in consecutive days. So we've introduced a new range of ticket options to account for that. So we've got a 3-day bundle of day tickets and a 12-day bundle of day tickets on our mobile app, which is proving quite popular. And as I say, an alternative to our weekly saver. We have priced those 12 days at £44, which just works out at less than £3.70 a day, so quite a discount. And it's the similar level of discount that we provide the customers of the weekly saver as well. So not rewarding customers for their loyalty, but as I say, travel doesn't have to be consecutive. So those 12 days can be used at any point within 30 days of purchase. And that's the update for Arriva Yorkshire. I'm happy to take any questions.
Could I go back to recruitment then, please, Dave?
You can, yeah.
I suspect from previous meetings I've attended that you were having difficulties in recruiting. Could I ask whether you've looked at it in a different way, refreshed it, tried to get people to engage more? Could you alter? Do they all do shift patterns, or do they sort of get standard patterns? And could, I mean, I'm sure there must be some antisocial hours built into that. And equally, do you do any extra to attract women drivers?
Okay, so yeah, there are various different rotas that we have. So trying to tailor our shifts to different patterns. So 4-day working weeks, 5-day working weeks, various things like that. So yes, certainly we also do some split shifts as well. So where drivers come and work for us at peak times, where we know we have more service out there. In terms of what we're doing to recruit, yes, the traditional sort of ways of recruiting we absolutely engage with. Also recruitment fairs and various other activities like that. So yes, I think in terms of it necessarily not being an issue of recruitment, it's more of an issue of some of our drivers deciding to work for different sectors, so the HGV sector in particular. And so whilst our drivers may give us a notice of a week to leave the business, it takes roughly around about 16 weeks to get a driver interviewed, trained up, and get them out on the road. And it's that time lag that's causing the issue more so than it is the recruitment necessarily. And then in terms of your final point, as to women drivers, yes, absolutely, we actively encourage that. So women drivers are most welcome, and we do have recruitment campaigns specifically targeting women drivers. So yes, we do. That's your question.
That's good to hear. So as a complement of drivers, what percentage are you at the moment? 80% or?
So slightly higher than that. So across West Yorkshire, so this is not just ourselves, but all across the industry, all bus companies. We have around about 250 roles that are vacant, which is between 7 and 10% of the roles that we need. So we're at that level. As I say, that's improving, but there still is quite a way to go.
Thank you for that. When you're referring to the uptake in passengers, how's the issues around the Leeds with all the roadworks and things like that, and then an increase of more traffic picking up? Does that create any operational problems?
It certainly does. So we enjoyed 18 months of reasonable traffic-free roads, and the reliability of our service did improve as a result of that. Now, obviously, we've started seeing that demand is coming back, and we're reacting to it. Demand is coming back on the roads in a very different way than what we experienced before the pandemic. So while some journeys, particularly in the AM, some journeys have started to take less time, and we're adjusting our timetables accordingly. We're now finding that journeys sort of 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning are struggling. So it's a constant battle to react to changing demands, but it's a process that we do go through because we do like to be reliable. So we do change timetables as and when we evidence a trend that there's congestion in a certain area each day.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Dwayne? Peter?
Yes, Chair. This is I live in Durka, which is part of Wriggleston, and the bus changed recently again. And at our last parish council meeting, there was quite a number of the general public there complaining about the buses and the new routes that's been brought in. And what we were annoyed about as a parish councillor was that there was no consultation with the parish council on the bus changes that have happened in our area. Now, I know that because they don't go past our house now, they used to do. But when they went past, I know a lot of the times there were nobody on them. I understand this. But the problem is that it would have been nice if Arriva could have had consultation with the local parish councils, as I say, when the buses were going to be changed, because there's another bus service that runs to Home Firth, that they've changed the number of it now. I don't know what it is, but that could have alleviated some of the problems that Arriva have done by changing the bus service. So sorry.
That's all right.
What I was saying is we the last parish council meeting was agreed that we would write to Arriva complaining about this, because if they'd have spoken to us, we could have probably given you another way around getting the buses to certain parts of the villages.
Okay, so we do like to engage, and I think it probably is an issue that your email address isn't on our mailing list, because we do send out in advance of any change to the relevant areas, to local councillors and to MPs what it is that we're changing and why. So if you could send me your email address through the group, then yes, by all means we will certainly engage in future. In terms of the bus route changes, particularly in that area, we have seen some growth. The reason for that particular change is that the residents of Hall Green were complaining that there were too many buses serving that terminus.
I know that, yeah.
That area. And it was a request that we allocate that resource and try and do more with it, which we did. So we've trialed 2 new routes, one linking Asda with New Milladam, and another extending our 108 service to the Sculpture Park. And the Sculpture Park one in particular has proved quite popular. You do have to try these things. In terms of the consequence of that and the different routing around that area, I'm more than happy to come out and meet with you, and let's get a map. Let's have a look to see what's working, where people can go in and tailor something to that community. More than happy to engage.
Can I come back on that? I don't know whether the clerk has written to you as yet, but I told her to do it. But it's just, it's like everything else, it's a matter of time. But I've forgotten what the other gentleman that we used to speak to at Reaver. He lived out Debbydale way, child gentleman that was bald. I've forgotten his name now. But Neil? No.
Neil Wallace, probably.
Neil Wallace.
Neil Wallace.
Authority.
Yeah, I used to speak.
But he worked for Arriva before.
Yeah, he worked. Yeah, he worked.
Did. Yes, you're right.
When he worked for Arriva, we had a good working relationship with him, and he used to meet the two men, not on the whole parish council, but two people from the parish council on a regular basis. Well, if we had problems, then we did get somewhere. So if whoever's taking over his job could contact the Wriggleston Parish Council, it would help us and you to alleviate the situation.
Yes, more than happy to engage. I think it's probably me that that you need. So yes, let's
Right.
change it.
No problem. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Any further questions?
I've just something you're on about women drivers, women bus drivers. I would say about 40% of buses in the Pontefract area are driven by women. There's been a massive shift lately. Just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, Dwayne, just these questions probably come as no surprise to you after we met the other week, but I just want to repeat them really, basically. Just the temporary changes to some of the buses that were made, that's going to be made in a couple of weeks' time. Well, it'll be this coming week, won't it? Just to make sure them buses are put back as there was as soon as possible, particularly in reference to the 110 bus. The split in that, the fact that anybody now from the outward areas will have to change at the bus station to get the new bus out towards the Asda and what have you. So I just want to make sure them buses will be put back as soon as possible, basically. And also the issue when we do change timetables around and routes around, I know you're saying there's more buses than ever go between Pontefract, Wakefield, Castleford and what have you, but some of the outline areas of them are now getting missed out. It is causing problems to quite a few people in the 5 towns and other areas as well. I hope we can resolve them in the future.
Okay, yes, certainly. So we've put some changes in, as I say, to try and maintain connectivity. In the instance of the 110, yes, the route is being split into 2, and that just allows us to reduce frequency on the south side and retain it on the north side, where it's more popular towards Leeds. In terms of that service change, we are getting some positive comments as a result of that. But it is certainly something that we will closely monitor, and we'll work with yourself, Councillor Morley, to ensure that we're revising that service in line with what the communities need it to do. In terms of the issue that you raise at 5 towns, yes, I think you're speaking of the Park Road area, and we're certainly aware of that, and we're looking at something excuse me, we've got lights on a sensor here. We're looking at something for that particular area to address those issues that the community have raised.
Have you any predictions on timelines?
In terms of the 5 towns area,
Yeah.
We're probably looking into early next year.
Right. Thank you for that. Any further questions?
Never fair when the lights go out on you.
No, it's not coming back on. I apologise.
Okay, and finally, then, any further questions before we move on to the workshop session?
Is Pete going to give an update from the rail side, Chair?
Glad to.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, on behalf of Northern, one or two things I want to cover. First of all, performance. Train service performance is generally good, generally strong. We measure something we call time to 3 now, which is every station within 3 minutes of its scheduled time. And we're sitting at about 88% compliant for that, which even as we come into autumn is fairly strong. The old measure used to be passenger performance measure, PPM, and that would equate to about 91%. So that is good. Clearly, we're not running a full timetable yet, although it's pretty close in West Yorkshire. And clearly, fewer people are travelling, which tends to speed things up. If we cover customer numbers now, we are sitting at between 75 and 80% of our pre-COVID numbers on average. But that covers a multitude of sins, really, because our commute, which is our main drive, is very low, and it's down at about 30%, between 30 and 35% of what we'd have seen in 2019. It's more than made up for by leisure market, which has been very, very powerful this year. Big flows to the coast, through Hull and onto Scarborough, and also into the Dales and across to the other coast in Blackpool. All those services have been very busy all summer. And often on a weekend, especially if the weather's nice, we're carrying more people than we did pre-COVID. And last Saturday being a good case in point in that. Why aren't we running a full service? Well, various reasons, but COVID-19 is the main one. We are still, we've still got what we call COVID allowances in some of our rosters. This is so people don't need to book on at the same time, so we're not got bunching in the depots. They're going away, but they're still an issue. But our main issue is driver training, because Northern as an operator trains a great number of train drivers, and we always have done. And what we found last year was we quickly could get the classrooms open again, and we could socially distance in classrooms. But there comes a point in any driver's career when they physically got a driver train, and we generally don't just let them do that on their own. And we need them to be accompanied in the cab, and you can't socially distance in a train driving cab. And so this basically meant for about 9 months last year, we had no driver training going on. Terrific work by the trades unions and our safety people, and generally nationwide. We got training back at the turn of the year. And this was, absolute credit to all those involved, because there was a hell of a lot of testing going on and bubbles forming, training bubbles forming. But it worked, and our training restarted then. More recently, it's got much easier as the restrictions have lifted, and subsequently we are making hay while the sun shines and training people. But we have that, we have that 8 months hiatus to catch up on, and it's proving difficult. I can tell you that all our people are now qualified in our new trains, and our new trains are all operating, and that was great. And that was a big training burden there, but that was all done over the spring and early summer this year. Really credit to all involved. Masks keep coming up, and the fact that masks aren't mandated. They are not mandated on trains. We request that people wear them, but we can't insist upon it. And generally, mask compliance is lower than it was, and is falling away. But you find that wherever you go. You see that in the high street too, and in retail. But our train cleaning carries on, and our, we are enhanced cleaning that will carry on. Also, we're using fogging products on our trains to ensure that all the touch points are clean and stay clean. And where we can, we open windows, and where we can't, because some of our trains have air conditioning, especially new ones, it is fresh air, air conditioning or heating we use, which basically replaces the air in the train to keep the air in the train fresh. The fuel crisis was recent, wasn't it? And questions were asked about that in Leeds. Generally, we haven't an issue. Fuel to Neville Hill, our big depot at Neville Hill, is delivered by rail, so that wasn't a problem. And where we do get road tankers delivering, it's done directly from a factor, and we've not had an issue. The only issue we counted was with taxi operators and some of our station cleaning operators, where we had to, where they found it difficult to get fuel, but that seems to have gone away now, and we've not had any incidents reported this week. Next timetable change is in December, but it's, as far as West Yorkshire is concerned, it's pretty similar to the one we're currently using, with the exception of the Hull Halifax returns to an hourly service, which will feed East Leeds, which is a good thing. And we are doing a lot of marketing at the moment to get people confident in travelling again, and not least marketing that Commuting market, which at one time we would never need to promote, because we had plenty of commuters. So, and that is what we're focusing on over the winter period. That's really the report from me, Chair. Happy to take any questions, should there be any.
Could I ask what's the uptake on your rail card is?
Sure, yeah, and I didn't really cover that. Should have done more. We have, because obviously people don't, the commuting pattern has changed, and we certainly find the trains are fuller commuter-wise on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday than they are on a Friday and a Monday. as people work from home more. So we introduced a flexible season ticket. It's a national product. Uptake's been slow, but with the 30% commute, that's not surprising. We're still selling plenty of season tickets and conventional season tickets for people who are traveling into Leeds to work. People in retail can't work from home, can they? And they're still traveling. But it's early days, if I'm honest, and we will finally tune this product, because maybe it's not. It's basically 10 journeys for the price of 9 or in a carnet form. Maybe that's not generous enough. We did run a flash sale just a couple of 3 weeks ago, where we're selling lots of pound fares, which was very popular. So we're trying all sorts of things to get people back to the train and get people confident traveling as well.
So if the pound fare has been popular, you're not going to reintroduce it?
We will do. We will do it again, yes. Clearly, you've got to to control this very carefully, because as I said earlier, we have no problem filling those trains on a weekend, and the leisure market is very strong. But where appropriate, yes, it will be something we'll do again.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Pete? No? Well, thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Right, I think we're on to the agenda item 11, the workshop session, travel and transport post-academic. Who's presenting this? Is that you, Andrew?
Sorry, I was looking for the right screen to unmute myself, which is always helpful, isn't it? I don't know whether one of the governance services officers on the call could put the presentation up or not. I don't know whether that's is it Aaliyah, are you there?
Yes, I can do that for you if you like.
That would be brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
So whilst that's happening, I'll just give you a bit of an overview of what this is about, and it's to try and get your views on travel and transport as we hopefully move into a post-pandemic period. I say hopefully because in my son's school, 17 out of 28 of the children in his class are off today with COVID. So whilst it may feel post-pandemic in some places, it didn't feel quite post-pandemic to me just at the minute. But that aside, we need to have a think about how we can come back more strongly, I suppose, in terms of public transport specifically, but travel and transport in general. And I've got some slides to run through, hopefully relatively quickly, which will just maybe get your thoughts going and give you some useful information, I hope, about where we've been and where we think we're going. And then we can perhaps have a bit of a discussion about the 3 questions that are at the end of the presentation. And the first of those is, how has COVID changed your travel habits and perception of safety? Second is, what needs to happen to enable transport to support the economy and the recovery? And the third is, how do we ensure transport options enable the widest range of people to be included in society? So that's where we'll get to in a few minutes. And here's the presentation. Excellent. Hopefully it is anyway. There we are. Right. So if you could move on to the next slide, please, Leah. So that's what I was running through just a moment ago. We know that things are recovering slowly, and Dwayne and Pete have both talked about the fact that they're at 70, 80% in terms of patronage. That's no mean feat. I didn't think we'd get there at one point, but we are there, and that's really positive. So we're going to consider current data and customer research in the next few slides, and then we'll come back to the questions that I just shared with you that are there at the bottom of the screen. Next slide, please. So I'm sorry, first of all, an apology for how small some of this information is on this sheet. It's quite hard to see these charts, and we have expressed that view to the authors of this. But I will work with this as best I can. So you can see that bus and rail usage are near their highest levels since the COVID-19 pandemic started. Also, as Councillor Garbutt wisely acknowledged in his comment to Dwayne about traffic, we know that traffic is also well on the up, 87% of the equivalent week in 2019. But what we also know is if you look at the graph on the top right of the screen there, weekly bus passengers by user group across West Yorkshire, what's quite marked is if you look at the under 19 figures, you see that under 19s have returned to north of 90% across the board, whereas some of the other user groups, so that's the dark purple line that's shot up massively since the schools reopened. Some of the other lines, so the orange one is disabled bus pass holders, and the yellow one is senior or elderly bus pass holders, and the green one in the middle there is adults, bobbling around the 70% line and quite flat almost at the moment. So feels like it might have flattened out a little bit, possibly. And then in terms of the charts at the bottom, I'm sorry that they're really difficult to see, but what they're showing basically is a gradual increase in the footfall and the use of bus and rail over the period of the pandemic. So those are they. So next slide, please. This bar chart is looking at what people feel that they're likely to do moving forward in terms of their travel related activity. And it comes as no surprise really that a lot of people, 43%, are saying that they're going to work from home more. Equally, 13 and 24% respectively, people saying they're going to shop for food and basics or shop for other items online. We know that the Amazon vans are around by the dozen, are they not? On the more positive front, cycling and walking on the up again, but I suppose slightly less positive. Bus travel potentially down 19%, train travel potentially down 17%. So when we look back at that previous graph and we see that we're at around the 70% mark for adults, that 19% mark, maybe there's a recovery up to 80% of where we were, possibly, question, who knows? And the question really is it going to be permanent or not? And these people are saying that they think it will be. So next slide, please. And this slide is showing you the frequency of commuting. So the big orange blocks are the 5-day-a-weekers, and as you go up, it's fewer days a week. So frequency of commuting, if you look at the middle block, to take the bus, for instance, 69% before COVID commuted 5 days a week, and only 46% after. Equally, on the rail side, the 1 second from the left, 54% said they did that they were 5 day a week before COVID, only 23% now, and that's replicated across car commuting and even people walking. So there's more people working from home, and that's reflected in these percentage figures. Next slide, please. So what do we know? Road use has recovered better than public transport, and that broadly mirrors the national trend. Is that because people feel safer in their cars? Question, don't know. We also know that West Yorkshire residents say that they expect to travel less by public transport and more by walking and cycling, as the previous slide said, and that people are more likely to be buying, shopping online and working from home. Commuters, we're not expecting them to come back to 100% of what they were, especially potentially in rail. And then in terms of the transport focus national research, an increased proportion have said that they use public transport in the last 7 days. And actually what this is telling us is that people feel safer, or have felt safer recently when they've used a train or bus than they did previously. So yeah, that's good, but still fewer than 50%, only 2 out of 5 said they feel as comfortable using trains and buses now as they did prior to the start of the pandemic. And anecdotally, certainly for myself, when I've been on buses and trains, I've noticed that people are reticent or reluctant to sit next to other people on buses or trains quite often. So that's still there's still an issue there. And the proportion, this bottom one is interesting, that the proportion that say they wore a face covering for the whole journey is falling, and that I suppose is in line with the more relaxed guidance over what you need to do. It's less of an instruction and more of a we'd like you to, please. Next slide, please. So how are we addressing this as a combined authority and working with our partners through the West Yorkshire Bus Alliance? So on bus, we're submitting a bus service improvement plan very shortly. There are commitments to a 5-year network plan. So the bus network is going to be designed to take customers where they want to go. Flexible ticketing with a daily contactless cap system, as in London. So you will never pay more than X amount, whereas at the minute that isn't the case in all areas. A passenger charter so that customers know what they can expect and improve passenger information with that. And then bus priority schemes, highway schemes on the road to reduce bus journey times and increase confidence in the bus service. Next slide, please. On ticketing, the M-Card, we've launched our M-Card mobile app in spring 2021. That's a multimodal smart card, so it provides travel for bus and rail across West Yorkshire. Customers can buy day saver tickets and they're available on bus and rail. And there's a discount if buying blocks of 10 tickets, and we're actually increasing that to bundles of 50 and bundles of 100 even. So people can buy big bundles of tickets up front and make savings on them. And that's particularly good because it enables part-time commuters to benefit. They don't, as Pete was explaining, they don't have to travel consecutive days. And what we're going to be going live with very soon is gifting of tickets. So for instance, with parents with children at school, they'll be able to buy their ticket on their mobile phone and then transfer it seamlessly to their child's mobile phone. And that works in many different contexts. So it will be equally useful for instance, job centres who want to provide travel to job seekers to be able to go to their interviews or applications, for employment, for companies who want to give their employees tickets, etc. So we have moved into the 21st century finally, which is good news. Next slide, please. On the rail side, Pete would probably be able to answer any questions on this, but he's talked about flexible contact season tickets already. The take-up's been quite, not as high as it might have been, so they're looking to develop that further potentially. And I'm not sure what the 8 days travel in 28 days is. Pete, do you know? Can you shed any more light on the 8 days travel in 28 days if you're there still?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, it's what it says. It's basically a carnet product where the discount's higher because you're obviously paying for more, but you can make 8 journeys within 28 days at a discounted rate. So that's what that is.
And it's point to point.
It's point to point in that instance, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Next slide. Oh, Pete, what do you know about We Mean Green? Anything?
It's yeah, I do. It's another. The whole rail industry has been affected by COVID, as you can imagine, and it's another way of encouraging people back to the railway, but kind of demonstrating its green credentials, because of course it is. And both freight and passenger railways, used fully, remove a lot of vehicles off of the road. So it's a promotional tool, is what it is, from the Rail Delivery Group, but really to promote the green credentials of the rail industry and rail travel.
Excellent, thank you. Next slide, please. So then, turning to active travel briefly, we want more people to walk or people want to walk and cycle more of their trips, and we would quite like that as well because it gets cars off the road. So we need a safer, protected network to enable people to walk and cycle both on and off road. So there's a lot of short trips that people make in the local area, and it's important that those journeys don't suffer from sort of air pollution, but actually also where people are making those short journeys by walking or cycling, it means they're not in the car. So that's positive in terms of air quality and congestion, etc. So next slide. So national government, West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the districts have put walking and cycling at the heart of their transport proposals, starting local and then building out from there. So if you can tackle those short journeys, then actually you make a lot of benefits quite quickly. And there are examples of where we're looking at reallocating road space for the benefit of pedestrians and reducing traffic volumes and speeds in various areas. Next slide, please. Adapting to COVID. How has transport adapted to COVID? Well, Pete talked a bit about some of the cleaning issues around trains. On the buses, we've introduced capacity indicators on the real-time displays at a lot of stops now, so you will be able to see how full the bus that is coming up the road is in real time, and make a decision about whether you want to get on that one or whether you want to get the next one. So we introduced that during COVID. Obviously, we've introduced the range of ticketing products, which are more flexible. And we've also introduced a fair deal for young people for under 19s in collaboration with the bus operators. And a number of operators have introduced their own individual fare promotions. So for instance, some have introduced either for a fixed period or for forever, £1 for evening services, which is obviously a very good offer. Next slide, please. So here are the questions then. That's the end of my talking. How has COVID changed your travel habits and perception of safety? What needs to happen to enable transport to support an economically sustainable recovery? And how do we ensure transport options enable the widest range of people to be included in society? So does anybody have the answers? Does anybody want to ask any questions? And even if you don't have the answers now, it would be really helpful if you were able to feed back to us so that we can feed it into the work that we're doing. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. Could I just ask about the daily contactless system, CAP system? What exactly is that?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Chair?
The daily contactless CAP system.
The daily contactless CAP system. So where a person boards a bus and they tap their app onto, they tap their phone with their app on it onto the sorry, rewind. Where they buy a fare and they buy a single journey, paying with a bank card on contactless, and then they buy another one, and then they buy another one. So if they're making 3 journeys with 3 single fares, the price that they pay overall will be capped. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So they will never pay more than a certain amount of money. Whereas if you boarded a bus and you paid cash and you got a paper ticket, and then you boarded another bus and you paid cash and you got a single ticket, and you boarded another bus and you paid cash and you got a single ticket, the bus company or us never know how many journeys you're making, and you will just continue to pay and pay and pay and pay. So it's about saying to customers, you'll pay this much, but no more.
So it's an incentive, basically.
It is an incentive, yeah.
Right. Any further questions for Andrew?
Or any pearls of wisdom? Oh, look, lots.
Peter.
Right, well, I know a lot of the times I talk in the past, but the problem you've got is once you get commuters into the car, you can't get them out again. And the problem is that when they build all these new houses, especially around our area, the people have already got used to using the cars and they won't go back on the buses. And that is a simple thing that I think a lot of the time when it comes to the planning departments of every council, they should plan a transport system around it. And I know talk in the past, but I lived in Leeds for many, many years, and part of Leeds where I lived wasn't too bad, but you've got to go back in history. So when they did the slum clearances in South Leeds and they put a tramway system in, and built the houses around the tramway system, which worked at that particular time. But the problem you've got is people tend to travel further to work than they did in those days. But like I said, once you get them into public transport and off into the cars, they don't go back. And another problem that we have, especially where I live, is these so-called cycle paths, where they don't, you know, I've got my dual carriageway that goes past the back of my house, Denberdale Road, and the amount of people that's on cycles that do not use the cycle paths, which causes a lot of frustration for drivers. But, you know, but when you talk to the police, there's nothing they can do about it. But to my mind, the cycle paths should be for cyclists only, and the cyclists should use them. If they don't use them, I think they should be dealt with, personally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You think they'd be protected on it, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But they do annoy people when you get them going 2 or 3 up together on a dual carriageway, and then there's a cycle path at the side.
Thank you for that, Peter. Any further questions? Any further wisdom?
I won't say wisdom, but maybe points, Chair. Just as somebody that doesn't commute a lot into a big city, but I do have to go into Leeds for magistrates' duties, you can just see that the traffic's not there. It's just, I've never seen Leeds as quiet in all the years I've been going there. It can sometimes, you know, pre-pandemic take you get from Castleford to Leeds, it's everything up to an hour to get to the magistrates' court. I'm there in 20 minutes now, so you can see that has definitely come down. The people using the cars and commuting in there. I think Pete makes some really good points about people's mindset once you get them into using the car. It's very difficult to get back to using, and we need to work on that one definitely. Just a couple of points. So when we look at active travel, something personally that I am a big fan of is the cycle lanes that are off the road. I think the Castleford Wakefield Greenway has been a prime example of that. The amount of people that use it for leisure, use it for work, walking, you know, cycling there, it's been fantastic. And for somebody like myself who's not very confident on a bike, I much prefer off-road, public highway cycling than I would actually on the highways. So I'm a big advocate for them. And I think we've put another section in now. So basically you can get from Pontefract all the way through Pontefract Park. You have to use a little bit of public highway, then onto the Greenway at Cutside in Castleford. And you can practically get all the way down to Wakefield using the river. I think it's a wonderful it's something I'd love to see more of in the Wakefield district. So that's one of the points on active travel. The only other thing as well as we move forward, buses as well, having zero emission buses, obviously with the climate change agenda. I think that's something that we really need to push forward as well. That's a few of my little comments I want to make there, Chair. Thank you.
As long as you're not speeding to court, Matthew, that's the main thing.
Never.
And then getting a parking ticket.
I think the it's good to hear about the success of the Castleford Wakefield Greenway, but on the so thank you for that. On the zero emission buses piece, I mean, that is something that we're pushing. Dwayne, what's the mix of your fleet in Wakefield at the minute? Is Dwayne there?
The light's gone out.
His light's gone out. He is there.
Oh,
his lights are back on.
Hey.
I'm not. I know. I'm not asking you about zero emission buses, but I'm just interested to know what your sort of fleet replacement program looks like. If anything.
So initially we've got a phased approach to Euro 6. So across our West Yorkshire operation, we're just shy of 80% in terms of Euro 6, which is the latest standard in diesel emission vehicles. And yes, as you rightly say, Andrew, the move towards zero emission is definitely our strategy. We are at this point working with the Combined Authority and other bus companies with the Zebra bid. So it's a zero emission bid for some vehicles for the Wakefield area. We've selected some routes where we think that those vehicles will be better suited. So yes, in short, definitely part of our strategy, and definitely something that we're working towards.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So, Chair, just come back on one final point I forgot to mention. It's just the use of freight for goods and what have you. Obviously, Wakefield's a massive warehouse industry. You know, God knows how many around the district. It's something I would love to see that we had using freight a lot more within the Wakefield district to get our goods out. I think we, you know, could sort out a lot of problems of congestion out on the M62 as well. So just another point I wanted to make.
Thank you for that.
Just to comment on attracting people back to rail, all the stations were designed when car ownership wasn't great, and just before the pandemic there was serious car parking space issues. Whether to that I don't know, but it's something to bear in mind that obviously it's really hard not to use your car for the first point of journey to the railway station, because in Pontefract, obviously our stations are a bit out of the way, but yeah, that needs to be kept an eye on to make sure that there is adequate parking, because at Monkhill that was at saturation point. I showed Yvette Cooper a photograph where they were parking on both sides of the access road about 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, it's something to bear in mind. And also, as regards numbers back with COVID, obviously when COVID's gone, people will have confidence. I don't think there's anything more anybody can do until people stop dying of COVID. You know, there will always be that nervousness of proximity to other human beings until the virus has come its course. So I think there's just some things that you can't do, and you've just got to, you know, let things take the course. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Any further questions? I think what you're saying, Enzo, is because of the patterns in the way we operate our lives now, and you're suggesting 80% would be probably target of people returning back transport. And then, as Peter said, that we're all creatures of habit, and once you stop doing something, it's very hard to encourage them to go back to what they used to do before. Have you any thoughts on that, Andrew?
I would agree that it is hard, but I would also suggest that it's not impossible. So where the right conditions are put in place, and Peter makes an absolutely valid point around planning restrictions and planning of housing and what have you, to make sure that it is accessible to public transport, to be able to walk easily to your bus stop or walk easily to the local amenities and what have you, then that is the best way to plan housing, as opposed to a sea of cul-de-sacs that are miles away from the bus stop and don't provide any walking route through to a bus stop. I think that we, in terms of public transport, we need to make public transport as attractive as possible to people, both and what we know is that non-users of public transport say that the two things that will persuade them to use public transport are A, cost, and B, convenience. If it's not too expensive and it's convenient, then they'll use it. If it's a bus an hour or a bus every 2 hours and it's expensive when you get on it, they're less likely to use it. Oh, and by the way, if it's unreliable, then it, and the same applies to the rail as well, to an extent.
Yeah.
So my view would be that we need to get those basics right. We need to work on reliability. Now, it's really hard, and I don't want to kick Dwayne when he's down and the lights are off, because he's struggling, as all the bus operators are, with driver shortages, you know, as if it weren't enough having come through COVID to now have this as well on top of everything else. We need to get through this immediate problem, and hopefully it is an immediate problem and things will level out in terms of drivers. And then once we've done that, we need to, with the bus service improvement plan, we need to look as an organisation and with the bus operators to see how we can improve things. And I'll leave you with this thought. It just always strikes me that if people know how to use the system, then they will use the system. They're more likely to use the system. And if people trust the system, they're more likely to use the system. If they don't, then they're not. And the reality is, if a person can get in an Uber and it's not much more expensive than a bus, or if a person can park in a town centre and it's not much more expensive than going in the bus, and actually, if there's two of you in the car, well, it's definitely not more expensive than getting the bus. Are you going to do it? A lot of people would say no. So that's the challenge.
Thank you.
But we won't be beaten.
Right. Any further questions?
Can I
Observations or comments?
just add on to what Andy was saying about buses and my generation, we didn't have cars. We went to school and I walked to school, but I went to work on the bus, and they got used to using buses. But the problem you've got, I think, today with the youngsters of today is they want to be there yesterday, the day before, basically. But they've got no idea when it comes to reading a timetable to change buses. Because I know when I first left school, I lived in Headingley and worked in Putsey, and had to get two buses to get to work. And I got used to the system of knowing which buses to get and how to go by planning it. But I think a lot of the youngsters today don't realise. We had a lot of problems when they changed the buses in our area. And I'm saying, well, you can change, And they look at you daft. What do you mean change? So when you get on the bus, you go somewhere, so you get off, and you wait for the next one that follows it, that goes to where you want to be. But I think you need to get the general public to understand how the system works. And I think a lot of them don't realise that.
That's really helpful, actually. I mean, one of the things that we're looking at, one of the things that we've implemented in Leeds that we are gradually rolling out to the whole of West Yorkshire is called network navigation. And to put it simply, there's a series of corridors that we're showing on a map pictorially with different colours flowing out depending on which corridor you're on. So you may be on, you used the example of Headingley, you may be on the Headingley corridor, and that's a certain colour. And what we're doing with that is we're trying to say, right, don't worry about the number so much. You need any of the yellow buses, the buses on the yellow line that will get you to Headingley, and then you can pick them. And actually, I was having I worry sometimes that the message might not be getting across. But I was having a conversation with a colleague who doesn't use the bus very often, and he said to me, he lives in Meanwood in Leeds, and he said to me, "Oh, I realised you could get the 7 to Meanwood and just walk down through it." And I said, "Oh, how did you work that out? Why have you never worked it out before?" And he said, "Well, it's because it's coloured the same as the other one on the map. So it just goes to a slightly different place in Meanwood, but it means that if that one comes along, I can get that rather than the other one that I get." So we are trying to look, Peter, at ways that we can make it easier. No, I appreciate actually the answer is that they should all know how to read timetables, but we want to try and make it easier for people to be able to access the system.
Thank you. Any final questions? I'm not aware that we anything else on the agenda. I don't think at that point. Thank everybody for their attendance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.